taped season 1, and I have to tell you, in all honesty, I never dreamed there'd be a second season. I thought this show has been a tremendous amount of fun to do, and doing it will be good cocktail party talk. And I just never dreamed we'd have a season 2. And I also want everyone to know, my first involvement with Project Runway has had nothing to do with what I do on the show now. I was a consultant. And my role in the show was in absolutely no one's vocabulary. So even that happening was a huge surprise for me. And I have to add, no one ever said this to me, but I'm still confident that the producers created this role because they were fearful that by giving the designers a challenge and sending them into the workroom, no one would speak. They do their work, and you wouldn't hear a voice again until they come onto the runway to present their design. So by sending me in to probe and to query, it would at least elicit some dialogue. And on that note, I was equally confident that I wouldn't be in the show. As long as they have the designers responding to me, you don't need to see me, you don't need to hear my voice. So when we had the premiere, I didn't attend because I thought, if I'm in the show, what am I going to look like and sound like and be like? And if I'm not in the show, I'm going to be totally humiliated. So the show aired, and I was very concerned about how 7th Avenue would respond, how our industry would respond to all of this. And it was very, very mixed. And some people I was and still am very close to were very naysaying about it. They thought it was unrealistic in terms of time constraints. I disagreed then. I still disagree. They felt that it didn't portray the industry the way that they would like to, and I'll give you my interpretation of that. Prior to Project Runway, the industry was really portrayed in a very glamorous way. It was like this big, frothy confection. And furthermore, it was, the confection was a kind of veil of mystery over all of it. And it caused everyone to think, including my students, that, oh, while I'm a student, it's hard work, but once I get into the industry as a designer or as a merchant or a stylist, whatever the role may be, it's going to be nothing but glamour, and I'll be at the end of a runway collecting a huge bouquet of flowers, and I'll be flying off to Saint-Tropez to rest and repair, and it's like baloney. So Project Runway rips the veil off and says, look, this industry is dirty, gritty, daunting, difficult, and unless you love it, don't do it. So the industry was a little snarky about it. So here's the moment I'm leading up to.
Okay.
It's Bastille Day 2005. We have just wrapped season 2 of Project Runway. So we've had it, season 1 has aired, season 2 has been done, and I get choked up about this. The Emmys are announced, and Project Runway season 1 has been nominated for an Emmy. So the producers and the crew are still at Parsons because we've just wrapped. And I go tearing through the halls at Parsons, shouting at the top of my lungs, we're nominated for an Emmy! We're nominated for an Emmy! And then that evening, walking home, I was on 7th Avenue and just fairly coincidentally ran into 2 of the people who were snarky. And I just looked at them, and I knew I had, forgive me, kind of shit-eating grin on my face. And I just said, well, for all of your bad-mouthing of Project Runway, we've just been nominated for an Emmy. And that was a thrilling, thrilling moment because it was an endorsement that it's a show of quality, and we were the first cable show ever to be nominated in that category, ever. And we've had 3 subsequent seasons of Emmy nominations. We never won, but we did win a Peabody Award this past year. And do you all know the Peabody? So there we were. You can't nominate yourself. The committee has to find you and select you, the Peabody Committee. So there we were with news programs and documentaries, and there's strife and consternation everywhere, and blood and death and destruction. And then there's happy, peppy little us. So it was really thrilling. It was really, really thrilling.
That's amazing.
I told you I would babble away.
No, I love it. I think it's phenomenal. Is there any scene that was cut from Project Runway that you wish would have aired?
Oh, lots of them.
Give me like a highlight, behind-the-scenes, juicy bit of information that all of us would love to hear about.
Well, the brilliance of the show is how deft the editors are, because there are dozens and dozens of hours of tape from anywhere from 4 to 6 or, well, 8, 9 cameras. And I see everything, except what happens in the apartments, and I don't want to see it. I see everything that's happening in the workroom all day, and I don't know how I would ever tell the story in terms of being able to slice and dice it and be cohesive. And it's especially true when we have seasons where we're still taping when the show begins to air, because the editors and the producers don't know what the outcome of the show is. Right. And so part of their goal is to give you a little bit more of who will be staying in longer. And if you don't know, it can be really difficult. So God, there's so much.
Well, maybe what I was trying to think about is, have you ever had a conflict with Michael or Nina or
Oh, but you have
Heidi?
To remember, Susie, I don't engage with Michael or Heidi
right.
or Nina when we're taping. I mean, that's not true. I say hello, but that's it. I mean, it's a church and state situation for me, really, because they want to talk to me about what's been going on in the workroom. What do I think? What happened? Who struggled? Who was falling apart? Who do I think should really win? Who should go home? I can't do that. So I am there during the judgings, but I'm in the very back of the auditorium, both literally and metaphorically, in the dark. And do I want to jump up and shout and say things? All the time, all the time. But let me just give you one behind-the-scenes thing that I wish had been on the show, because it highlighted his insanity. I don't know how many of you saw season 3. We went to Paris. Vincent Libretti. Vincent is or had been a vegan, and we were very, very respectful of that, and responded to anyone's dietary needs, but he was particularly vocal about them. And anticipating going to Paris is all he talked about. They'll never understand this. They won't be able to accommodate this. What are we going to do? What am I going to do? I'll starve. Trust me, Vincent, you won't starve. So in the show, I take the designers to a restaurant the first night that we're there. And this is all real. We really did this. And we called ahead to explain Vincent's needs. And they couldn't have been lovelier and more accommodating. And they had a 3-course meal for him, and everything was set up. So we arrive at the restaurant, and this is all on camera. I tell him that this is the situation and that they couldn't have been nicer, and to relax, not to worry about it. And he said, I don't want their vegan meal. What do you mean you don't want it? What are you going to eat? So he picks up the chalkboard that was next to the table. He says, I'm going to have the leg of lamb. The leg of lamb? What are you talking about, the leg of lamb? And he looks at me and says, when in Rome. So I wish it had been in the show. And the other thing that wasn't in the show, a lot of editing, was season 5's Kenley. Because if you saw as much of her and heard as much of her as I did, you would have turned the TV off. Really. She's very talented, but annoying. She has cornered the market. Well, and insulting and disrespectful. But.
So let's talk Tim Gunn Guide to Style.
Okay.
We're going to switch hats here. What's it like when someone resists the makeover? I mean, what do you do? How do you react? Has there been an experience that you've had that you thought was really frustrating for you? And how did you handle it?
Are any of you watching Guide to Style? Yes. A few of you? Good. Thank you. Keep watching. We need the ratings. Well, the show is not an intervention, for those of you who haven't seen it. It's not an intervention. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in taking someone who friends or family have sort of turned in and say, okay, we're going to rescue you from your fashion foibles. Maybe they don't want to be rescued.
Right.
They could be perfectly happy the way that they are, and that's fine. Just own responsibility for how you're presenting yourself to the world. So it's not an intervention. But I will say, this journey that we take is very difficult, and it's difficult, and you know this as well as I do, because when you tap into somebody's fashion core, you're tapping into their psyche. You're tapping into a very personal place, and it's highly sensitive. So for most of the women we work with, it gets to a point where they don't feel comfortable going any further than we've taken them. And part of it is also the speed with which we do it. I mean, if we tape the show in 6 days, and I always give full disclosure to these things. I'm transparent. 1 day is off camera. 1 day is an off-camera shopping day after we first go shopping, because we've got to get it right, and believe me, we don't have enough time when we're taping. So But I say it's not a lot of time. For us, in terms of production, it's absolutely adequate time. But for them, in terms of recalibrating their thinking about themselves, it's an adjustment that they're going through. And they reach a sticking point that's very difficult to go beyond, and they tend to retreat back to where they were. In season 1, we were working with a teacher from New Jersey who only wore cargo capri pants, if you can believe that, cargo capris, and tank tops. And that was her whole dressing vocabulary, and including at school. I thought, oh my God, those kids, no wonder the world's dressed the way they are. So she really pushed back when we were shopping. And it was a matter, because this was Veronica Webb I was working with last season. Veronica and I said with impunity, we're not doing this for you. You need to do the decision making here. I don't know what to do, but I don't know what to do. And then it results in a cascade of tears and I'm just going to leave, I'm going to go. To which we disarm everyone when we say, if you want to go, you're perfectly free to. You can go right back. You can do it. We don't have to continue this journey. And then they're really surprised because I think they think that they're our hostage. And we're going to say, no, now we're going to put the handcuffs on you. But no, we're very supportive of that. If that's really what they need to do, if this is so difficult and they can't do it, fine. So that's one example. Anyone watching this season? Allie, the woman from the Upper East Side, married to the plastic surgeon? I'm going to give you, again, full disclosure of the situation so you know that we don't make this stuff up. First of all, what we represented at as her home was not. And I'll tell you why. She told us that her snooty co-op wouldn't allow a film crew in.